Joining us now in our center seat, we welcome Democratic Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia. Senator, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Brett.
Just passed the budget over the hurdle, the procedural hurdle known as cloture, likely to pass easily in final vote here over the next day. What about this? You know, a lot of the concern from Republicans was that it takes from military pensions, and they say, like Senator Graham, that, well, it's just not fair. What do you say to him?
Well, first of all, I've been a Bowles-Simpson supporter from day one since I've gotten here 3 years ago, and like to see a bigger deal, because I've always believed that you have to put your financial house in order before you can do anything. I did it when I was governor and let everything else go by the wayside until I knew that we could take care of our priorities based on our values. That's just the way I think it should be done, and we're not getting there. So with what happened, the budget, we didn't get a perfect budget. It's the first resemblance of any type of a budget, a process that we have that kind of resembles something of normal order, going through appropriations. And with that, we're going to work hard to try to fix that with the military. It's the 1% COLA, it's the 1% COLA reduction, anyone under 62. And you can say those are promises we made and we should be able to keep, and you would think in normal times we should. But everybody is vulnerable right now, and we've got to go hopefully try to fix that. But it's what was in front of us, and we don't have any options of walking away and going into a shutdown again.
Yeah, like Graham and Ayotte and these people, these senators say, if there's anybody we should be protecting to find $6 billion a year,
we all feel
it's
that
the military.
Way, we all feel that way. But the bottom line is, you know, with this being said, that was one of the things that was worked out between the Democrats and Republicans, and you had a 333 vote in the House with that there, and I think we don't have a chance to amend anything. So do you want to go through a shutdown process is where we would be, or do you move forward and try to fix it when we come back? Charles.
Senator, on the budget, we seem to be through that, but what we're looking at now is a debt ceiling. Yeah. We heard Republicans saying they're not going to let it go by without something being done, or something, if you want to use the word, extracted. Do you think there should be a clean debt ceiling, or do you think it would be right for the Congress to use the occasion to do something to reduce our indebtedness?
Yeah. I'm probably not the right Democrat to ask about a clean debt ceiling, because I've not voted.
I know.
And when I had to, it got caught in a procedural vote to move it forward. I really think that you've got to come to grips with it.
And what would you like to see happen at the debt ceiling?
Yeah, a bigger picture needs to be looked at, and that's where the Bowles-Simpson came in, Charles, as you know. It looked at revenue, it looked at expenditures, and looked at reforms. And all that has to be taken into consideration. You can't put one side in the box. And what we're doing now, we just seem like making you vote and take score, try to use it against it. I'd rather fix something, and we've got to get together here and come to grips with it. We've got to have some reforms.
But there's no way that would happen before a debt ceiling.
The debt ceiling is going to come, right, and there's going to be something put on the table, I think, by the Republicans.
What would you like to see on it?
Well, I would like to see long-term reductions. I like to see a downward path. I like to see a downward path to at least a balanced budget. I mean, you know, as a former governor, that's all. First thing we ask the question, we go into our capitals, what's the revenue? Once you know what the revenue is, you know what your spending limits are. There's no such control such as that here. So as a Democrat, and we have many Democrats, I believe, that would like to see balanced budgets. No one thought we could do it in the 90s, and they did it, working with a Republican Congress and a Democrat's president, and it got accomplished. I think we could do it again. I think it'd be the greatest confidence builder this country ever had for the economy.
How do you get to a balanced budget when the deal we just had makes no dent at all in the trajectory of the country and the entitlement state, and your party, with whom you are notoriously discordant on occasions, flinches from even the change CPI, that is a tiny little adjustment of the way we calculate inflation? If they can't do that, what can they do about the entitlement state?
Well, George, it makes you look, if they just look at how we operate the entitlements, basically, not taking and threatening taking anyone's benefits away from them. But are the people getting benefits that shouldn't have gotten them and shouldn't have gotten them? People that are getting under the wrong false pretenses, and people that basically there's no review back for total disability, Social Security disabilities. There's so many things in fraud, waste, and abuse. If we could just get agreement to really go after that, it would be, I think, a blessing. And why people are afraid, and you know, my concern is it going to be there for the next generation? When you look at Social Security, they say, what, if we don't do anything, 2035, 2037 maybe. And on Medicare is much worse, 2024, 2026. And then also Social Security disability, 2016. So I don't know how far they can kick the can down or how much longer. Sooner or later, you got to pay the piper.
But every day, 10,000 more baby boomers become eligible for Social Security and Medicare. And you're on the Committee on Aging, and you speak eloquently about taking care of the elderly, but the welfare state is an enormous regressive transfer of wealth to the most affluent age cohort in the country, the elderly, who, after a lifetime of accumulation, are better off than the young and middle-aged people who are paying all these benefits.
I've always been partial to a means testing. I've always looked at means testing from the standpoint of a fairness to it. And I've always said this. I said, you know, my parents worked hard and they were in a little better shape, and I've had other relatives that needed a little bit more assistance. And I don't think my parents would have begrudged whatsoever in a means testing that said that theirs would have been a little bit different than someone who had more need.
But the Democratic mantra has been Ted Kennedy's axiom that a program for the poor is a poor program, because if you means test, it'll look like a program for the poor and the middle class will withdraw its support. Do you reject that?
Well, we never tried it, so I don't know how they can say it won't work. I mean, we got to try something different.
Juan?
So the Democrats, from the Democrats' perspective on this budget, Senator, the complaint has been, oh, you know, in order to get Republican votes, you could not extend unemployment insurance for those who had long-term unemployment. And therefore, that's the deal that had to be made. But what about people in West Virginia, long-term uninsured? As George Will pointed out earlier, people still say we're in a recession. How do you feel about not helping them in this Christmas season?
One, I don't think anyone, I mean, you look at it, is not compassionate about people who haven't been able to find work and legitimately looking for work. You probably need to look at state by state what their conditions are. Some states that have lower unemployment, some states that have higher. They have 4 tiers right now they work within, tier 1, 2, 3, and 4. We qualify in West Virginia for 1, 2, and 3, not 4. And with that being said, I understand today that Dean Heller, our Republican from Nevada, and you had Jack Reed, Democrat from Rhode Island, are talking about some type of a compassionate 3-month extension to some of this. But sooner or later, you know, I just ask when is that unemployment going to be acceptable to when we go back to normal order of 26 weeks?
Well, that's understandable, but I think part of the conversation taking place on the Hill is, will Republicans ever accept tax hikes in this current environment? Or is that absolutely never going to happen? Can you never make a deal with Republicans in which you would say, here, we'll cut some programs, but we need some revenue enhancement?
Well, and here's the thing. We're just trying to get agreement on the definition of revenue. Is revenue when you increase taxes? Is that, to me, that's revenue. If it's 35, goes to 36, 37, that's new revenue. If it's at 35% and you go to 31, but you have efficiencies, you close loopholes and offsets and credits and efficiencies, is that revenue? And then if they say, well, that's different. Well, if it's different, you're still concerned about how we spend it. Couldn't Democrats and Republicans agree that we have one tremendous debt problem in our country, and they're going to say for every new dollar of revenue, no matter how we get it, 60 or 70 cents will go to debt reduction, the remainder goes to infrastructure, nothing to grow the programs out, we live within our means, run them more efficiently.
Senator, if you stand by, we've got another segment coming up, more with Senator Manchin. Obamacare, other issues after a quick timeout.